The snow was falling gently from the sky, blanketing the barren wasteland in a white coat. It was Christmas morning, a day that used to bring joy and celebration, now just another day of survival in the harsh world of the Fallout universe. In a small settlement, a group of survivors had managed to build a small community. They had scavenged and fought their way through the dangers of the wasteland, and now they were trying to make a life for themselves. They had a small farm, a few shelters, and even a makeshift Christmas tree made out of scrap metal and wires. It wasn't much, but it was home. As the sun rose, the members of the settlement gathered around the Christmas tree, exchanging gifts they had made from scraps and treasures found in the ruins. They laughed and sang, trying to forget about the dangers that lurked outside their walls. But their peace was short-lived. As they were about to sit down for a Christmas feast, they heard the sound of motorcycles approaching. The settlers immediately grabbed their weapons and took cover, knowing all too well what those engines meant. Raiders. The group had encountered them before, ruthless and bloodthirsty. They would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. And now they had their sights set on the settlement. The leader of the group, a man named Jack, quickly gathered his people and devised a plan. They knew they couldn't outrun the raiders on their motorcycles, so they would have to stand their ground and fight. The raiders arrived, their bikes screeching to a halt outside the walls of the settlement. They were armed to the teeth, their leader barking orders and demanding that the settlers hand over their supplies. But Jack and his people were prepared. They had built fortifications and traps around their settlement, and when the raiders reached the walls, they were met with a barrage of gunfire and explosives. It was a fierce battle, but the settlers were determined to protect their home. They fought bravely, taking down raider after raider. But their numbers were dwindling, and the raiders seemed to have an endless supply of reinforcements. As the sun began to set, the settlers were running low on ammunition and supplies. Jack knew they couldn't hold out much longer. He looked around at his people, seeing the exhaustion and fear in their eyes. He knew they needed a miracle to survive this raid. And then, a miracle happened. From the distance, they heard the sound of engines again. But this time, it wasn't the raiders. It was a group of travelers passing through the area. Jack and his people held their breath, praying that these travelers were friendly. And to their relief, they were. The travelers, a group of Brotherhood of Steel soldiers, had noticed the commotion and had come to investigate. With their advanced weapons and power armor, the Brotherhood soldiers quickly turned the tide of the battle. The raiders were no match for their firepower, and soon, the last of them were defeated. The settlers cheered and hugged each other, grateful to be alive and to have been saved by the Brotherhood. Jack approached the leader of the soldiers, a woman named Sarah, and thanked her for their help. We couldn't just stand by and watch innocent people get attacked, Sarah said, a small smile on her face. Especially on Christmas. The settlers invited the Brotherhood soldiers to stay for their Christmas feast, and they happily accepted. As they sat around the table, sharing stories and food, Jack couldn't help but feel grateful for this unexpected turn of events. He realized that even in this desolate world, there were still good people out there. And as long as they stuck together and helped each other, they could survive and maybe even thrive. After the feast, the Brotherhood soldiers bid their farewell and continued on their journey. Jack and his people watched them go, feeling a sense of hope and gratitude. They knew that they would never forget this Christmas raid and the kindness of strangers who saved them. As they cleaned up the aftermath of the battle, Jack looked up at the sky, the snow still falling gently. He couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, there was still a glimmer of hope left in this world. And that was enough to keep him and his people going. The town of Haven was once a bustling trading hub, known for its strategic location that bridged different settlements and allowed caravans to easily transport supplies between them. It was a peaceful town, with its inhabitants living simple lives and relying on trade for their livelihood. But all of that changed when the vault under the sea suddenly emerged and invaded Haven. The vault, known as Vault 76, was originally built as a safe haven for the residents of Haven in case of a nuclear disaster. It was designed to withstand the immense pressure of the ocean floor, with advanced technology and resources that would allow its inhabitants to thrive under the sea. However, the experiments conducted within the vault went horribly wrong, resulting in the mutations of its residents and their descent into madness. The vault dwellers, now mutated and driven by their primal instincts, began to invade the nearby town of Haven. The once peaceful streets were now filled with chaos and destruction as the mutated residents attacked the unsuspecting townspeople. The town's defenses were no match for the strength and ferocity of the vault dwellers, and soon Haven was under their control. Among the chaos, a group of survivors managed to escape and make their way to the vault. Led by a resourceful and determined woman named Lily, the survivors were determined to discover the truth behind the vault's sudden emergence and stop the madness that had taken over the town. As they made their way down to the vault, the survivors were met with the sight of mutated creatures roaming the streets, evidence of the failed experiments within the vault. They cautiously made their way through the town, avoiding the mutated creatures and making use of whatever weapons they could find. Finally, they reached the entrance of the vault, a large metal door that seemed impenetrable. Lily and her companions used all their strength to push open the door, revealing a dark and eerie tunnel leading to the depths of the sea. As they descended deeper into the vault, they were met with a strange humming sound, growing louder with each step. The survivors soon discovered that the source of the sound was a powerful generator that was keeping the vault operational. They also found that the vault was designed to be self-sufficient, with advanced technology that allowed the residents to grow their own food and recycle their own waste. But as they delved deeper into the vault, they found evidence of the experiments gone wrong. In one room, they found mutated creatures in glass tanks, their bodies twisted and contorted beyond recognition. In another room, they found a laboratory filled with equipment used for genetic manipulation and experiments. The survivors were horrified by what they saw, and they knew that they had to put an end to the madness that had been unleashed upon the town of Haven. They continued to explore the vault, searching for any clue that could lead them to the source of the mutations. Finally, they came across a control room where they found the overseer of the vault, a man named Dr. Alexander. He was the mastermind behind the experiments, driven by his obsession with creating a society that could thrive under the sea. But his experiments had gone wrong, and instead of creating a utopia, he had unleashed chaos and destruction upon the town of Haven. Dr. Alexander, now mutated beyond recognition, attacked the survivors. But they were prepared, and with their combined strength and determination, they were able to defeat him. As he lay dying, Dr. Alexander revealed that he had not acted alone, and that there were others like him who were still in control of the vault. The survivors quickly made their way to the control room, where they found a group of mutated vault dwellers trying to activate a device that would release a toxic gas into the town of Haven. Without hesitation, Lily and her companions fought against the mutated dwellers, determined to stop them from causing any more harm. After a fierce battle, the survivors managed to deactivate the device and put an end to the madness that had plagued Haven. With the vault now under their control, they made the decision to destroy it, ensuring that no one would ever have to suffer the same fate as the residents of Vault 76. As they made their way back to the surface, the survivors were met with a sight they thought they would never see again: the peaceful town of Haven. The mutated creatures were now gone, and the town was slowly being rebuilt by its grateful inhabitants. Lily and her companions were hailed as heroes, and the town of Haven was forever grateful for their bravery and determination. As they looked out at the sea, Lily couldn't help but wonder about the other vaults that were scattered across the wasteland and the unknown experiments that may be taking place within them. But for now, the survivors were just happy to have saved the town of Haven and put an end to the madness that had threatened to consume it. As they looked out at the calm waters, they knew that they had truly found a haven in the midst of the chaotic and dangerous world of the Fallout universe. The sun was setting on the barren wasteland, casting an orange glow over the ruins of the old world. The group of explorers trudged through the rubble, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. They were on a mission to scavenge supplies from the ruins, a task that had become a routine in their daily survival in the harsh world of the Fallout. The group consisted of 4 people: Alex, the leader of the group with his rugged looks and sharp mind; Sarah, the skilled medic with her quiet demeanor; Jake, the strong and silent type; and Lily, the youngest member of the group who had a knack for finding valuable items in the most unexpected places. As they made their way through the ruins, they couldn't help but marvel at the grandness of the old world. The buildings and structures were mostly intact, despite the obvious damage caused by the nuclear fallout. It was a stark contrast to the desolate wasteland they had become accustomed to. Look at that, Sarah said, pointing to a towering skyscraper that stood tall amidst the ruins. Can you imagine what it must have been like before? The group stopped to take in the sight, imagining the bustling city that once stood in place of the ruins. But their thoughts were interrupted by the sound of thunder in the distance. We need to find shelter, Alex said, looking up at the darkening sky. There's a storm coming. They quickened their pace, hoping to find a safe place to take cover before the storm hit. As they walked, they spotted a sinkhole in the ground with a ladder leading down into its depths. Maybe we can take refuge down there, Lily suggested, pointing to the sinkhole. The others nodded in agreement and they made their way down the ladder, entering the sunken ruins. To their surprise, they found that the ruins were still mostly intact, with only a few spots of obvious damage caused by the sinkhole. As they explored the ruins, they came across a large room with a sturdy door. Alex pushed it open and they all stepped inside, finding themselves in what seemed to be a control room. The walls were lined with screens and buttons, and in the center of the room stood a large console. This could be our shelter, Jake said, looking around the room. We can barricade the door and wait out the storm. The group got to work, moving debris to block the door and making themselves comfortable in the control room. As the storm raged outside, they sat around the console, chatting and getting to know each other better. So, what brought you all out here in this wasteland? Sarah asked, breaking the silence. I used to be a soldier before the war, Alex said, his voice filled with regret. When the bombs fell, I lost my entire unit. I've been wandering ever since, trying to survive. I was a doctor, Sarah said, her gaze falling to her hands. But when the hospitals were destroyed, I had to adapt to the world we live in now. I was a mechanic, Jake chimed in, his hands rough from years of fixing machines. But I lost my family and my workshop in the war. Now I just try to keep our group's equipment running. Lily was the last to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. I was just a student before everything went to hell. Now I just try to help out however I can. The group sat in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. The storm outside was still raging, but they felt safe and secure in their makeshift shelter. It was moments like these that reminded them of the importance of sticking together and finding a sense of family in each other. As the storm finally passed, the group emerged from the control room, ready to continue their scavenging mission. But as they made their way through the ruins, they noticed something strange. The buildings and structures that were once intact were now crumbling and decaying before their eyes. What's happening? Lily asked, fear creeping into her voice. I think the sinkhole is collapsing, Alex said, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. They hurriedly made their way through the ruins, trying to find a way out before the sinkhole swallowed them whole. But as they ran, the ground beneath them shook violently, causing them to stumble and fall. We need to find higher ground, Jake shouted, pointing to a nearby building. The group ran towards the building, using whatever means necessary to climb to the top. As they reached the top, they looked down and saw that the sinkhole had indeed collapsed, creating a massive crater in its place. We're safe for now, Sarah said, breathing a sigh of relief. But their relief was short-lived as they heard the sound of approaching footsteps. They turned to see a group of raiders emerging from the ruins, their guns pointed at the group. Looks like we got ourselves some fresh meat, the leader of the raiders said with a sneer. The group braced themselves for a fight, but before any shots could be fired, they heard the sound of a helicopter approaching. The raiders looked up in surprise, giving the group enough time to make a run for it. They ran as fast as they could, dodging debris and obstacles as they made their way to the helicopter. As they reached the safety of the helicopter, they looked back to see the raiders disappearing into the ruins. Who are you? Alex asked, as they caught their breath in the helicopter. We're from a nearby settlement, the pilot replied. We've been looking for survivors and stumbled upon your group. Glad we made it in time. The group exchanged relieved glances, grateful for their rescue. As the helicopter flew them away from the ruins, they couldn't help but think about the close call they had just experienced. But despite the danger, they also couldn't deny the thrill of exploring the ruins and the sense of camaraderie that had formed between them. As they looked out at the wasteland one last time, they knew that no matter what challenges they faced in this new world, they would face it together, as a group. And that was all that mattered. The group of 4 friends, Ava, Max, Lily, and Jake, stood in front of the abandoned mall, their curiosity piqued at the sight of the once bustling shopping center. The building looked as though it had been frozen in time, with broken windows, faded signs, and a thick layer of dust covering everything. Whoa, this place gives me the creeps, Lily said, shivering as she looked around. I know, right? It's like a ghost town, Max replied, scanning the area with a mixture of fascination and unease. Ava, the most adventurous of the group, stepped forward and pushed open the rusty doors, the sound echoing through the empty halls. The group cautiously entered, their footsteps echoing off the walls. This place must have been amazing during its prime, Jake said, looking at the grand entrance with its high ceilings and elaborate decorations. Yeah, I can imagine the hustle and bustle of people shopping for Christmas, Lily added, pointing to the remnants of holiday decorations scattered throughout the mall. The group continued to explore, their eyes wide with wonder at the sights before them. They passed by abandoned stores, their shelves still stocked with products from decades ago. The music from the speakers above was still playing, a cheerful holiday tune that seemed out of place in the desolate mall. Look at this, Max explained, pointing to a storefront filled with Christmas decorations. It's like the owners just up and left, leaving everything behind. The group peered through the windows, taking in the scene of a perfectly decorated Christmas tree surrounded by presents, lights, and garlands. It was as if time had stopped in that very spot. As they made their way through the mall, they noticed that each store had a different theme. One was a winter wonderland, complete with fake snow and ice sculptures, while another was a toy store, still filled with toys and games from the 80s. This is so cool, Ava said, picking up a vintage Barbie doll from one of the shelves. I wonder why they never cleared out all of this stuff, Jake pondered, examining a shelf filled with outdated electronics. Maybe the mall went bankrupt, and the owners just couldn't afford to move everything out, Lily suggested. The group continued to explore, their imaginations running wild with theories about the abandoned mall. They made their way to the food court, where they found a few tables and chairs still set up, as if waiting for customers to come and enjoy a meal. Let's sit down and take a break, Max suggested, gesturing to a nearby table. As they sat down and rested their tired feet, the group couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness wash over them. The once vibrant and lively mall was now a forgotten relic, a memory of happier times. I wish we could have seen this place when it was still open, Ava said, breaking the silence. Yeah, it would have been amazing to experience the holiday rush and see all of these stores in action, Lily added, taking a sip of water from her bottle. The group sat in silence for a while, taking in the eerie yet fascinating atmosphere of the abandoned mall. As the sun began to set, they decided it was time to head back home. As they made their way towards the exit, they noticed a small door hidden behind a large Christmas tree display. Curiosity getting the best of them, they opened the door and found a staircase leading down to what appeared to be the basement of the mall. Should we check it out? Jake asked, his voice trembling with excitement. Absolutely, Ava replied, already making her way down the stairs. The group descended into the dark and musty basement, their flashlights illuminating the way. As they explored, they stumbled upon a room filled with boxes, all labeled with dates from the 80s and 90s. Guys, look at this, Max said, picking up a box and reading the label. It's like a time capsule. The group eagerly opened the boxes, revealing old magazines, newspapers, and photographs from the past. They spent hours going through the boxes, marveling at the nostalgia and history contained within. This is amazing, Lily said, holding up a Polaroid picture of a family posing in front of the mall during the holiday season. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the past, Jake added, flipping through an old-fashioned magazine. As the group made their way back to the entrance, they couldn't help but feel grateful for the unexpected adventure they had just experienced. They may have come to the abandoned mall expecting to find a spooky and eerie place, but instead, they found a treasure trove of memories and a deeper appreciation for the past. As they walked out of the mall, they made a promise to come back and explore more of the hidden rooms and secret corners of the frozen-in-time shopping center. For now, they would hold on to the memories they had made and the stories they would tell for years to come. The sun was setting over the horizon, casting an eerie orange glow over the abandoned mall. A group of 4 friends, Ava, Max, Lily, and Ethan, stood at the entrance, hesitant to step inside. Are you sure we should be doing this? Ava asked, her voice trembling. Come on, Ava. It'll be an adventure, Max replied, trying to sound confident. Yeah, and think of all the cool stuff we might find, Lily chimed in, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Ethan remained silent, his eyes scanning the deserted parking lot and the crumbling walls of the mall. Ava took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, let's do this. The group cautiously stepped inside, their footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. The once bustling mall was now a hauntingly empty space, with broken glass, decaying furniture, and faded signs scattered everywhere. Nature had taken over, with vines climbing up the walls and weeds growing through the cracks in the floor. Wow, this place is a mess, Max remarked, looking around in awe. Yeah, but it's also kind of cool, Lily said, picking up a piece of broken glass and examining it. As they made their way deeper into the mall, they came across a few stores that seemed to have been untouched by time. The windows were still intact, and the shelves were fully stocked with merchandise. Whoa, look at this place, Ethan exclaimed, peering into a clothing store. It's like a time capsule, Ava said, marveling at the perfectly preserved clothes. Do you think we can take some stuff? Max asked, eyeing a leather jacket. No way, that's stealing, Lily scolded, giving Max a disapproving look. Relax, Lily. I was just joking, Max chuckled, putting his hands up in surrender. The group continued to explore the mall, finding more stores that were in surprisingly good condition. They even stumbled upon a food court with tables and chairs still set up, as if waiting for customers to come and enjoy a meal. This is insane. How is all of this still here? Ava wondered, running her fingers along the smooth counter of a closed cave. I don't know, but I'm not complaining, Max said, grabbing a bag of chips from a vending machine. Do you guys think there's anyone else here? Ethan asked, his voice filled with concern. I doubt it. This place has been abandoned for years, Lily reassured him. As they made their way to the center of the mall, they noticed a staircase leading to the upper levels. Curiosity getting the best of them, they climbed up and found themselves on the second floor, which was almost completely destroyed. The ceiling had caved in, and the floor was littered with debris. Whoa, this place is a disaster, Max said, carefully stepping over a pile of broken tiles. Be careful, guys. We don't want anyone getting hurt, Lily warned, checking each step before putting her weight on it. As they cautiously explored the second floor, they heard a loud noise coming from one of the stores. They froze, their hearts racing with fear. Did you guys hear that? Ava whispered, her voice trembling. Yeah, it sounded like something fell, Ethan replied, his eyes wide with fear. Hello? Max called out, trying to sound brave. There was no answer, but the sound of footsteps could be heard getting closer. The group huddled together, ready to make a run for it if needed. Suddenly, a figure appeared from behind a pile of debris. It was an old man with a long beard and tattered clothes. What are you kids doing here? He asked, his voice gruff. We're just exploring, Max replied, trying to sound casual. Exploring? This is not a playground, this is my home, the old man said, his eyes narrowing. Your home? Lily asked, looking around at the destroyed surroundings. Yes, I've been living here for years. The mall used to be my life, the old man said, a hint of sadness in his voice. The group felt a pang of guilt for intruding on the old man's home, but they were also curious to hear more about his story. What happened to the mall? Ava asked, her curiosity getting the best of her. It was a thriving place, full of people and energy. But then the economy crashed, and people stopped coming. The owners couldn't afford to keep it running, so they just abandoned it. And I couldn't leave. This place holds too many memories for me, the old man explained, his eyes misty. The group listened intently as the old man told them stories of the mall's glory days, of the people who used to visit, and the stores that were once their favorites. As the night wore on, the old man invited the group to stay with him for the night. They were hesitant at first, but the old man seemed kind and harmless, and they didn't want to leave him all alone in the abandoned mall. As they sat around a fire, roasting marshmallows and listening to the old man's stories, they couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness for the once thriving mall and the man who had made it his home. The next morning, as they said their goodbyes to the old man, the group couldn't help but feel grateful for the experience. They had not only discovered an abandoned mall, but they had also made a new friend and learned a valuable lesson about the importance of cherishing memories and holding on to the things that matter most. As they walked out of the mall with a newfound appreciation for the past, they couldn't help but wonder what other hidden treasures and stories they might discover in the future.